Extra loud slurp of tea this evening, especially to welcome the new followers and to find out if any of you don't like it, so you can find out sooner rather than later, but also to reflect my level of frustration. A double wet farty slurp of tea for today's 5 Fact Friday, and I've got to actually just click that live on Instagram. Good evening, everybody. It's 8 o'clock on a Friday evening. Hello, Do It with Paulie. Hi, Martin. Really not expecting very many of you to be watching at 8 o'clock on a Friday evening, but this was the first opportunity I had today to get to. And I've had something of a frustrating day for other reasons as well. So I'm not in the best of moods, it has to be said, and that's not going to bode well for the facts that I have to go through. Now, hi Tina, hi Ricky, evening all. Been a significant new number of followers in the last week, both on YouTube and X especially. Welcome, all of you. Thank you very much for following. I'm Charlie Lambden. This is Moving Home with Charlie. And this is a channel where I share my knowledge from behind the scenes of the moving industry for 25 years as a supplier of technology, CRM and database systems and marketing systems to estate agents, large and small. As someone who has seen 20 years worth of home mover data coming from all the big portals, going into estate agents databases and back out again, and I get how the market works. And this is a precursor to this evening's 5 Fact Friday, because up to the election and before the election, everyone's biggest frustration was that nothing had been done in the housing market. Nothing had been done to fix it. Yes, there was a small leasehold reform bill that went through at the very end of the Parliament, not to be ignored and an important step, but overall, in the scheme of things, a drop in the ocean of the problem of the housing market. And I've been saying on this channel since I started doing live streams, that the worst possible outcome for the housing market, whenever the next election came along and whoever won, would be more nothing, more no change, more failure to change anything and to address any of the real problems, and more of the same would be the worst possible thing a new government could do. And I understand that with my background in the city and in politics, studying politics and in business and all kinds of stuff, and I spend time analyzing and going beyond this stuff, and also marketing and messaging communications, I understand that a lot of the stuff that all the parties put out leading up to the election and that Labour has been putting out since the election looks pretty encouraging, actually. Well, I can't give them a chance. 7 million long, what do you expect? 7 million a week. But those of us who've been around the block a few times more and understand project delivery that involving technology and communications and money, which is what I've been doing for a long time. And the business is not just software. I've been in logistics businesses as well and delivering it internationally. And so money and tech and delivering stuff is stuff that I've kind of done in a small way for a long time. But what you learn very early on is the difference between a bullshit project that's going to achieve nothing and that is already built on hot air and bollocks from day one, and actual change and actual delivery and actual progress. And I'm sorry, guys, but everything that's come out so far has been utter hot air, nothing of substance. And I will explain why. I'll go through the 5 facts, and at the end of them, I'm going to go through a post on X that Labour put out just a couple of hours ago with the 10 things that they've achieved in their first week. And I will point out to you why not one of them is an actual achievement of any kind, but it sounds good, it looks good, and it's been done professionally, and they've used Photoshop and they've made it look slick, and they are taking us for fools to a degree I don't think I've ever seen before. At least the Tories were openly chaotic, incompetent, hilarious, but not funny at the same time. They barely made any attempt to cover up the total shit show that was going on. But what I'm seeing here is a really worrying proficiency in glossiness over the top. And not to be swayed by any challenges either. They stick to the message. Anyway, right. Sorry, that's already 5 minutes of ranting. And I will come on to some questions as well. So if you could put the word question in your post, if it's a question you'd like me to address. Excellent. So the original Ghostman says, got cold cellar and cheap fags ready. Excellent. Ruth says, getting keys to your new place next week. Congratulations, Ruth. Well done. Unicorns and rainbows. Hello there. David Holloway, Billy Big Calls. Hi. Paris, nice to see you all. Okay, let's go through the 5 facts. And I'm going to try and remain calm. It's going to be difficult, and I'm probably going to sort of gradually build up until I get into full rant mode. Because in case I forget to say it later, what really gets to me is that there is nobody in government, in politics, or in the moving industry that would appear to have a vision of how this is solved. Not a soul. Shh, Charlie, get on with it. Right. This is 5 Fact Friday. For those of you who are new, it's the 5 most significant new developments in the last 7 days that I think have the biggest impact on the housing market or the most relevance to the housing market. They are objective facts, which I will report and go through and then discuss afterwards with anyone who wants to discuss them. And you might think there are other facts that have happened in the last 7 days. They must be facts. They must be things you can point to and there's data to back it up, or a story or an article. It can't just be your opinion. Your opinion is not a fact. You can have opinions about facts, but you can't have an opinion and think it's a fact. Although a lot of people appear to disagree with that. And the other thing, before I forget, because otherwise I forget to say it later, is that so many people saying, come on, Charlie, give them a chance. It's only been a week. You know, let's just give it 5 years and see how they go. Okay, anyone who's watching this who thinks that we should just give them a chance, give them 4 or 5 years and see whether they hit their targets, is clearly blissfully unaware of the millions of people living in destitution and poverty and uninhabitable conditions and unable to move on with their life, and the number of people for whom the housing crisis is holding their life back, right? Now imagine you've got all 5 million of those people, however many it is, listening to you, and then say, just give it 5 more years and see. That every single person, every single one of you that has said that is oblivious of the position of security and relative luxury you must be in to think that it's okay to wait and see. Because what happens every single time there's a parliament is that we wait and see. They don't achieve it. They fuck it up, and we go, oh, right, well, let's vote them out and get someone else in then, because they'll be better and different. And then we have a new 5-year output of voters who are lambs to the slaughter of the guff that comes out. They go, oh, that sounds good. Let's vote for them, because they're not the old lot, they're the new lot, so they must be better, right? And here we are back at fucking square one. 1.5 million homes going to build in the next parliament in the next 5 years. No, they won't. And I will bet anyone any amount of money that they want to, that they won't, right? And just one small fact to begin with on this is that one of the country's largest house builders, if not the largest house builder, Barratt Homes, this week, Barratt to build fewer houses this year, despite Labour's pledge to fix shortages. Housebuilder cites economic and political uncertainty. As expected, number of completed homes drops by up to 7%. And it goes on. And the point that everyone seems to overlook is that the government is not in a position to mandate or force or require or hold a gun to anyone's head and say, you will build these houses. They can't do it. There's no method of doing it. They can regulate building, and we can talk about how well that's gone in terms of house building, and they can stimulate house building with help to buy, free money giveaways to pump up house prices and pump up house builder profits, but not actually solve any housing problems. They cannot say, right, we've decided that you are going to build 100,000 houses. You did that. Oh, go on, off you go. We've told you. Off you. No, we're the government. You have to do it. We're the government. Go and build it. What do you mean? How do you pay for it? That's not our problem. You're the private sector. Go and borrow the money or something. What do you mean? What if you can't sell them? Well, that's not our problem. Okay, it is our problem. Oh, right. Oh, I see what you mean. Oh, we can't actually force you to build anything. Right. Okay. So this is this massive fallacy. They've restored housing targets. The mandatory housing targets that were there were never legally enforceable, as confirmed by that barrister on Radio 4 this week, who said they were never mandatory, they were never legally binding, they're just policy. So all that Labour's done is gone, we're going to make it our policy that 1.5 million homes is our target. Pat us on the back and vote for us, yeah? And by the time you realise that we're never going to get anywhere near that, it won't matter anymore because we're in power. Quod erat demonstrandum, as they say. By the way, links to all these articles are below if you want to go and watch them, read them for yourself. Okay. So fact number one is that Barratt has said that they're going to be building less homes this year, not more. They're one of the biggest home builders, effectively showing you that actually the government's got no power over how many homes the private sector builds. And they've not said they're going to build any social homes nationally at a government level. But there may be the opportunity for councils. We'll come on to this in a minute. Okay, fact number 2 of the 5 facts. Starmer says Ukraine can use UK missiles to strike in Russia. What's this got to do with the housing market, Charlie? Well, you remember how when Russia invaded Ukraine, energy prices went nuts and inflation went nuts, and it stuffed us all royally from behind financially, caused cost of living. Well, what do you think is going to happen if Starmer elevate? I'm not offering any opinions on the war itself. I'm simply saying, from a UK economy and stability point of view, publicly saying, here you are, Ukraine, we're going to give you these British-made missiles, and we're happy for you to fire them into Russia. My only question is about the wisdom of that statement. And to me, I can't interpret it any other way than saber rattling and aggression and raising the stakes. Now, maybe there are people who think, well, strategically, tactically, from a war point of view, this is good for Ukraine and it's good for us. But I was just gobsmacked when I read this headline. Absolutely gobsmacked. What? You publicly said that British missiles can be fired into Russia, and you don't think anything's going to happen bad if we do that? I mean, at best, it would bring massive uncertainty, and that's the worst thing for the economy and the housing market, because it kills transaction volumes, and that kills everyone's ability to move. It's just bad. Transaction volumes are what we need to get the housing market back on its feet. Right, that's fact number 2. Keir Starmer saber rattling and apparently warmongering in his first week in office. I don't really get it, unless he's to me it just says he's definitely being told what to say by somebody. He's a glove puppet, absolute glove puppet. He's dead behind the eyes. Have you noticed? When you sell your soul to the corporate, any institution, when you just sell your integrity and say, yes, I will say whatever you tell me to say. I'll take the job where I just say whatever I'm told to say. It eats your sense of self. And you can see people who've done it because they've become dead behind the eyes. And then, did you see Rishi Sunak's first speech as leader of the opposition. And everyone was like, wow, he sounds much like a much more reasonable, nice, decent human being. Yeah, that's weird what happens when you haven't got someone behind the scenes telling you what you will and won't say. Who'd have thunk it, right? Fact number 3. The RICS published its monthly housing market survey results, where it surveys 200 estate agency businesses who are also surveyors around the country. And this, in many ways, is one of the most useful monthly housing market reports. Not this month, though, because this survey was carried out in the middle of June, right in the middle of the election campaign. Everything is sort of stuttering to halt a bit. So it's worth reading. And what you should do is go and have a look at it to see regionally how the regions behave differently to each other. That is worth. I'm not going to go into it now, but have a look. But overall, buyer demand continues to be slightly negative. National house prices are still seeing some downward pressure, but the outlook appears to be brightening. I suppose you've got to keep some optimism. But I've linked to this PDF report below. If you want to know what's happening in your region of the country, download this PDF, go and have a look at it, read the methodology of how it's made, and then look at these graphs and look at the regions, right? They're all self-explanatory if you can read a graph. But just remember, they're not reporting on prices. They're reporting a percentage balance of respondents being positive or negative on prices regionally. So they're all sort of mostly a bit down, some a little bit up. Scotland, Northern Ireland stronger up. And that's prices in the last 3 months. And this is not scientific. It's not recorded. It's not actual data. It's sentiment. Do you think prices went up or down the last 3 months? Up. And this is the balance of the respondents. Okay. So take a look at that if you are moving and wanting to know what's happening. It's one of the more worthwhile things to keep an eye on if you're moving house and want to know what's happening in the strength of the housing market in the region where you live. It doesn't break it down by price range. It doesn't break it down by price type. So there's still a lot of movement within it, but it's better than nothing. And it's much better than looking at national figures. All right. I'm actually going to swap facts 4 and 5 around the other way. Okay, so this is Matthew Pennycook. He's our new housing minister, and he said this on Radio 4 this week.
Essentially, we can't get to a target like 1.5 million new homes, which we've set ourselves. We can't address the housing crisis without building at a larger than local scale, if you like. So large-scale new communities, of which new towns will be a big feature of that. And what we said was we would launch a task force very early on in the Parliament. That remains our intention. So
a task force. Sounds good. What does it mean?
We have independent expertise coming in to help us.
Oh, independent experts on house building. Because what they've all been doing is just sitting around waiting for you to call them up. They've been there all the time, these guys. There's loads of them all around the country, and they know exactly how to solve the housing crisis. So bring those guys in, and Bob's your auntie. Hang on.
Have a look at what sites are the most appropriate, because if you're talking about something like a new town, we've got to ensure that it has the right transport connections, the right infrastructure is in place, that it has economic purpose, if you like.
But as the government, we can't do that ourselves. We've got all of the data about population census, population density, everything else, but we need independent experts to tell us about this. We're just going to farm it out. Right.
There's a link directly to an industrial strategy that we will be bringing forward. We've got to make sure these places will be thriving communities.
A link to an industrial strategy that we'll be bringing forward, because you've got to make sure that they're thriving communities. Sounds good.
And I think it actually pertains to some of the intro commentary we heard, not just private new estates thrown up in the middle of nowhere without the right infrastructure, whether it be schools or GPs, surgeries, that allow communities to thrive. I think one of the most complaints I hear most often is communities say the infrastructure isn't in place and therefore it's not benefiting the local community. It's not.
You built the house, but you didn't build anything else. And so the roads get too close.
And I think that really gets to the heart of what I think see as the challenge, if you like, there will always be a minority of people who will resist development at any cost.
I'm just trying to moderate my reaction here, because from what I've seen and heard of Matthew Pennycook, he cares. He really cares, and he is ambitious, and he really wants to make a difference, as all new first-time ministers do. And I like him. I mean, I like what he's saying in terms of, I believe that he wants to do what he's saying he wants to do. I don't believe he's being controlled by other people. I believe he is in a new job, and he's been told he's got a new job, and he's just not yet realized he's not going to be able to do it, and he's not going to be allowed to do it. Now, but what I have seen is a really nice guy with great ideas who hasn't got a fucking Scooby how to do it, and doesn't have a vision for it either. That's not his fault. It's not his fault, right? Someone else appointed him a shadow housing minister and a housing minister. But I'm sorry, he knows what the problems are. Absolutely. Absolutely. There is no shred of a plan of how to fix anything. We're going to hire a task force of independent experts to tell us where to build the new towns. I'm going to stop on this one, because if I go any further, I'll actually start to get angry about it, because the amount of taxpayers' money and people's time and life opportunities being spaffed up the wall because we've got very nice people who don't know what they're doing in these jobs is why I said before the election that even though the Tories were an absolute shit show when it came to the housing market, this Labour government is going to be even worse. Mark my words, those of you who think of, this is not a political standpoint. This is someone, I don't care who's in power if they deliver. I don't care if they can actually fix the housing market. What I do care about is people who say they're going to do it but haven't actually bothered to figure out, hang on, how would I do it? Could I do it? What would my plan be? Would my plan work? And there are people who actually could do this, but understandably, they don't want to go anywhere near politics. And I get that. I totally get that. So that's fact number 4, our new housing minister's first appearance to talk about his plans for the housing market. And I'm afraid, nice bloke. He reminds me of a lot of waiters. You go to a restaurant, all you want, you're with someone, you haven't got much time, you've got to talk to them when you eat your food. You get a really, really friendly waiter, really friendly, really nice, doesn't understand their job as a waiter, brings the food out before you've got your drinks. You haven't got the stuff that you need. You have to ask for things you don't have to ask for. Really nice, totally useless. That, unfortunately, is what Matthew Pennycook strikes me. And that is not a personal remark. This is a professional observation for which I do not blame him at all. But I just despair at the lack of substance in the team and in the plan to fix the housing market. Now, fact number 5, arguably the most important of the week. One moment. So this is Vicky Spratt, who is a fantastic housing correspondent, but actually is considered by most people to be a housing campaigner because of how relentless she reports on the state of the housing market. Talking about how 20 councils warn Labour that their housing finances are at crisis point. Now, I'm going to spend a bit of time on this fact number 5, because this is including some Labour councils who are actually giving the government the cold, hard, stark reality staring them in the face, and they're not listening. So, the cross-party group of councils includes Birmingham, Bristol, Camden, Dudley, Greenwich, Hackney, Hull, Islington, Kirklees, Lambeth, Leeds, Leicester, Lewisham, Newcastle, Nottingham, Rotherham, Sandwell, Southwark, Sheffield, and Wolverhampton. Councils across England will be tipped over the financial precipice without an urgent funding boost to build new housing and repair existing stock a cross-party group of 20 local authorities has warned. Right. There's nothing new there. We already knew that. They're just restating the fact that this is the case. Okay. But they felt the need to warn Keir Starmer's new government that rising emergency accommodation costs for homeless households and restrictions. Right. So what a lot of people don't know is that councils are legally required to find accommodation for people who meet the criteria of being technically homeless. Okay, they have to do it. They're not allowed to not do it. They must do it at any cost. And this is relevant because this backs up what I've been saying is the only solution to this problem, the housing market's whole problem for a long time. Right. So one of the things they want to do is I'm going to skip. They've got 5 bullet points down here about what they actually want. So the 20 councils' housing demands to Labour are: come up with a new fair and sustainable model for housing revenue account. Now, the housing revenue account is a ring-fenced bank account, effectively, councils have, which is only to be used for housing and can't be used for other stuff. It can be used for building. It's where rent from the buildings that they do on gets paid in, etc. So they want a new fair and sustainable housing revenue account model, right? Because at the moment it's not working, which is why so many of them are going under. They want to increase the headroom local councils have to borrow so that they can build. Yes. And return to giving local councils more favourable borrowing rates for investments. Yes, this is good for everyone if this happens. The whole of society, taxpayers, the government, the people who are, this is good for everybody, right? Reform unsustainable right to buy policies by reducing discount levels and protecting newly built council homes for sale. They're saying, can we please stop giving our council homes away at such a cheap price, right? The discount's too big. And can we protect newly built council homes and stop them being sold so quickly? Because what they're saying is we need these council homes to house the homeless people who we are legally obliged to house, amongst other people. They want them to announce a new long-term capital-funded green and decent homes program to bring all council housing up. The new standard of safety, decency, and energy efficiency by 2030. Right. Now, so safety and decency, yes, because the actual state of some of the council accommodation that is out there has to be seen to be believed in just how shockingly bad it is. And a lot of tenants don't feel able to challenge the council about and complain about it because they don't want to lose it. They're worried they're going to lose it. And it's not the councils being feckless and slack, or maybe some of them are, but most of them just don't have the money. Why don't they have the money? Well, because as a lot of them go on to say in this article, and imagine this, right? You're paying your council tax to your council. More than 50% of their income, their council income, from you paying your council tax, is going on paying hotels and bed and breakfasts for temporary accommodation for people the council is obliged to house. That's costing English councils alone £1.7 billion a year of council tax money that's being taken away from schools and other things that councils want to do locally. Right? In other words, all of us are being affected, even if we think, well, we're all right, we're fine, we're comfortable, everything else. If your kids go to council schools, they are affected by this. Council services, if you rely on any council services, they're all affected by the council's budget being totally consumed by temporary accommodation. This is what I mean when I say solving the housing crisis should be the government's number one priority because of the number of other problems it solves straight away. And this is council saying that, not me. Point number 5, expand grant funding for the completion of new council homes. Give us more money to build more homes, council homes, social homes, and fund councils. This is a great idea. Fund councils to take over private development projects which have stalled because of problems in the current construction sector caused by the current housing market downturn. Housing market downturn? What housing market downturn, Charlie? Prices go to the moon, right? There's no housing market downturn. And this isn't about people making money out of house prices. That's just, it's almost a side issue in comparison to how important this problem is. And this is the root problem, the root cause. Because imagine, just hypothetically, if all councils around the country owned enough social housing stock to meet their obligations so that they don't have to pay hotels or landlords or bed and breakfast owners hotel rates for putting people up into places where they can sleep but not really live. They can't do anything else. They can't cook or clean their clothes or just do basic stuff like have people around to say hello and have a cup of tea. It's the biggest win. Solving this problem, the cascade effect of solving this problem is so big, and yet national government, the new government that I was just praying would come out and go, we are going to fund a massive, we're going to give councils, we're going to give them targets, we're going to give them the money to borrow, we're going to make the borrowing available for them to fund their own social house building needs, whatever it takes. And we're going to make sure that they are not frustrated in that process and held up in that process by outdated planning laws, because we're going to put in place housing bosses that have come from central government who roam the regions to make certain that there are not stupid reasons standing in the way of councils building the homes that they need. And if this happens, it frees up other housing and it brings down rents. The knock-on effect is massive. And the private sector stops getting its fat cash cow from the government coffers. There are people out there. I was with some guys yesterday. I was with some agents yesterday and people in the housing sector at an event. They were talking about how that there are people whose job it is to place people, and they're making a mint. They are literally creaming the money out of this exact problem. Council money being used to find accommodation for people from the private sector. It's obscene. That problem goes away if central government says to local governments, how much do you need? Right? So each council should have someone from central government go to them and go, tell me what you need. Tell me what, give me your actual numbers. How many people have you got in temporary housing right now? What's that costing you right now? Well, that's a stupid waste of money. You can have that much money to build. How fast can you build? Are there any local development projects that have stalled? You should all go and read that article, right? It goes into depth in all of this. It is such an obvious solution and quick win, and there is nothing the government can do in any sector that will lift this country out of the doldrums that it's in than doing this, especially by creating jobs. And people go, well, there aren't enough skilled people. Okay, when we can train them, There are people. There are so many small levers and dials that can be turned in government that would bring a lot of people back into the working. Apprenticeships. There's just so many things. I'm sorry, I don't buy this. Oh, it's just impossible. I totally accept and hear that right now there aren't enough tradespeople in certain places to fill this role. But that's a problem that can be solved within a year or two. Not today, not tomorrow, not next month, but within a year or two, with a government that actually decided this is what we're going to do, because this will get us voted back into power 5 years from now. And the benefits will be massive and immediate, because it will actually also, a massive house building program will create employment and prosperity in the places that it's most needed. It's a no-brainer. Wow, 35 minutes of ranting. Oh, there are two Ruths. Right. And breathe, Charlie, and breathe. I kept the lid quite tightly screwed on through that. What questions do we have? And by the way, yes, I will repeat this. I said it in a video, the last video I put out on the channel. But if there's no one else that can help the government at least see this opportunity, I will gladly go and do it. I will gladly go and write to them, see them, talk to them, record videos directly to them that you guys can repeat. I can put them on X. I can tag Angela Rayner. I can tag Matthew Pennycook, and you guys can just repost and like and reshare them until they go, hang on a second, we should talk to this guy. I wish there was someone else with a vision for how to fix the housing market. I really do. It's not just that, by the way. That's one step. There's a lot more that needs to be done in the moving industry as well, which is really where my real experience lies. SFM, yes. Another word for policy is wish. Do it poorly. 1 weekend, there are thousands of houses behind the target. Yep. Yeah. And they're not, I mean, they are, any true Labour voters and Labour Party supporters must be furious at what they're seeing right now. My other half, lifelong Labour voter, came from a very difficult background, and lifelong Labour voter didn't vote for Labour this time because he's not Labour. It's just not Labour. This isn't the Labour Party. They are the new Tories. And if you want to see it, right, I'm going to run through another. This is the thing that came out today. Fuck me. Honestly. Where is it? Hang on a second. Here we go. The front of this. I'm going to run through this because it just really. 1 week in, and look at this self-congratulatory absolute drivel. So here's a thread posted by the Labour Party at 4:30 this afternoon. Now, I want you all to pay attention to the choice of photograph and the sort of the visuals on this, right? Nice, happy, being cheered. Keir Starmer, congratulations. Testing Keir Starmer's Labour government. No, it fucking isn't. It's our government. It's not his government. And they shouldn't even call it his government. It is the population's, it's the electorate's government. It's just that all of the messaging and positioning of this just really boils my blood. What Keir Starmer's Labour government has done after just 1 week in power. Let's just have a look. Now look at this. Look at the photoshopping of this image. Restored mandatory housing targets to build 1.5 million homes, including affordable council housing. Now, they're citing this as an achievement. Let me tell you how hard it was for that achievement to be accomplished. Let me tell about the adversity I had to overcome to put this number one achievement, they're calling it. Can we say that we're doing that again? Yeah, cool. Let's just say that. That is literally all they had to do. There is no achievement, and they are using a Tory policy. They can call it a target. It's a policy that didn't work and wasn't met, and they've changed nothing about it so far. Oh, but look at the lovely sky and the light and the housing. Oh, lovely. Yeah. Oh, I love Labour. Here's the next colossal piss take from Labour this week, from the government. I'm going to stop calling them Labour, right? They're not Labour. It actually does Labour voters a disservice to call this Labour Party, I think. They created a national wealth fund. Oh, that sounds amazing. And look, they're standing in front of a massive aircraft turbine. Oh, it looks so cool. And they're unlocking investment. My first question is, who locked this investment up? Where was it locked? It's just bollocks. The wording is bollocks. Unlocking investment. They haven't unlocked anything. They've created a fund that's too good not to put money into for private investors. It's a national wealth fund is supposed to be the government investing the proceeds of its investments for the people. Like in Norway, they have a national wealth fund, a sovereign wealth fund, which is hundreds of billions of euros equivalent of actual assets owned by the Norwegian government and the Norwegian people. This is a 7 billion. I mean, it's a pathetic amount to start with. To put it into context, right? 7 billion is half of 1 month's interest on government debt. The monthly interest payments that we have to make on government debt is more than twice as much as this headline fund we're creating. It's so good. Look how clever we are. And again, all they've had to do is make an announcement. Unlocking investment, supporting thousands of jobs. Well, thousands of jobs, even if it does work, is really nothing. There were thousands of jobs cited as being at risk today, just in one day, and making every part of Britain better off. I mean, that is demonstrably false. This National Wealth Fund is going to make every part of Britain better off. I mean, I bet there are thousands of people who are like, all right, let's come back here in a year's time and see if we're better off thanks to this National Wealth Fund. It's just insulting bullshit. Look at them grinning at each other. They haven't got a clue what they're doing. Honestly, I don't say that lightly. Okay, onshore wind ban number 3. Again, they're just reversing a Tory policy. That's not an achievement, is it? I'm not going to get into the fact that this is also a complete waste of time, because I know people in the business of constructing wind turbines and maintaining them. Firsthand, I know people who own businesses who construct them and run them and maintain them. And they're like, like if it wasn't for the subsidies that the taxpayer is paying for, there wouldn't be any because they don't make any money. And the carbon emissions that go into the maintenance alone of them, which are not counted in terms of the net zero thing, are a joke. And they require so much maintenance. The gearboxes in these things break and don't last. And the gearbox, guess where the gearbox is? It's 200 feet up in the fucking air. And it weighs tons. So you imagine what it costs to do the maintenance on a gearbox that's up in the sky. It's like it's a joke. Onshore wind, the only thing worse than onshore wind is offshore wind in terms of cost of maintaining it. The only sustainable green energy will be modular nuclear reactors and solar panels, solar as well to an extent. But yeah. Now, I think this photograph, this is Wes Streeting shaking the hand of someone saying, right, I don't know what I'm doing. You look like you know what you're doing. Oh, no, sorry, that's about the strikes. Okay, so he's begun talks. So here we are. We're only on number 4, and they're calling this an achievement. They've had a meeting. Brilliant. With achievements like that, we can all rest easy that we're in safe hands. When they're citing this as one of their top 10 achievements, they've begun talks. So they've continued the talks the government was already having. Tell me this isn't a piss take, guys. Tell me I'm not overreacting. Oh, look, they've had another meeting. They met with regional mayors to set out plans for a major program of devolution to drive growth. I'm not even going to go into that one. It doesn't even dignify a response. The sheer amount of bollocks. Started working on establishing the new Border Security Command to smash the gangs. Gangs, we're coming for you. We're going to smash you. Oh, but hang on, they're not on British soil. They're in France. And I remember actually Rishi Sunak challenging him on this smashing the gangs. He actually said in one of the debates, "What does that even mean? What are you going to do?" And he didn't have an answer. It's bullshit. They're not going to smash anything. Here we are. Oh, look at this. Look at the posturing here. And so planning decisions for major infrastructure will now be made nationally rather than locally to stop projects being tied up in years of red tape. So if you don't want pylons coming through your garden, tough shit. They're going to happen anyway because national infrastructure, Don't care about you guys. Don't care about you. It's just going to happen. And again, that's not an achievement. That's an announcement. They're citing as an achievement. Had talks, more meetings. Oh, brilliant. Look how good this is for British people. He's continuing a previous government policy of recommitting £3 billion a year of military support for Ukraine for as long as needed. Everyone at home hasn't got enough money, and the local councils are going bust. But here you are, dude. You can have £250 million a month for as long as you want. I mean, I know that's twice as much as we're spending on temporary accommodation, and I know it hasn't got. But here, just all yours. Good luck, mate. And by the way, you're welcome to lob them into Russia as well, because that's going to go really well. That'll probably be fine. Probably be fine. Ordered an immediate assessment on the country's public finances. That's not necessary. It was done by the Institute of Fiscal Studies just before the election, right? This is yet more delegate. We've ordered more meetings, and I've ordered it. I've ordered it, mind. Immediate assessment, please. I wonder how quickly the immediate assessment will be delivered. To say, look how bad everything is, and it's not our fault, it was the Tories. Okay, but that's not an achievement. An achievement is something that changes the lives of the people, or at least shows us tangible progress and action that's actually changing something. There is one. We need to come on to one, actually. Right. So there we are. Those are the 10 things. Now, the other thing that I thought was just brilliant. Now, talk about this. If you don't know what happened, Ed Miliband has ordered an immediate ban on drilling in the North Sea in a decision that overrules Energy Department officials and risks triggering a wave of legal action. Now, I just think this photograph captures better the overall state of the new government's competence than anything else. A man with a confused look on his face, pointing in two different directions at the same time, wearing an ill-fitting hat. I mean, that photograph for me encapsulates the level of competency of the new government. This is nothing personal against Ed Miliband. I actually like the bloke. Don't necessarily agree with his politics or not. I think his heart's in the right place. I think he wants to make a difference. Do I think he will? No, he's not qualified. He'll stuff it up. And guys, I'm sorry. I don't know where we do find the people qualified to do this. I don't have that solution. I just despair because this is what we voted for. Okay. I'm amazed that any of you are watching this on Friday night. This is just me ranting. Why is this important to the housing market? Because I just want to recap this, and there are a lot more of you watching now than there were at the start. If you are experiencing frustration in your housing situation, maybe you can't sell, maybe you can't buy, maybe you can't afford your rent, maybe you're a landlord who's stuck and you now can't afford to keep it, you can't sell your property. Maybe you're someone living stuck in horrible accommodation that you can't move out. Maybe you're someone who's being evicted and has nowhere to move to. The list goes on and on and on of people who are affected. Maybe you're a family squashed into a tiny place to live that's just really, really causing frustration inside your family, and everyone in a bad mood, and no one going to work happy, and everyone coming home. Like, all of the problems that the housing market has are as a result of government policy failure for the last 40 years. I had a guy on X today who's now blocked me. He reacted to my post saying, 7 days, look at the shit show. And he said, come on, we should give him a few years. It might be fine. And I replied to him saying, look, anyone who says, let's wait a few years and see, doesn't understand how bad things are. And then he came back to me going, well, don't you tell me how bad things are. I've had to move back in with my parents because I can't afford my rent. Oh my God. Dude, it's because people in your situation have been saying, give the government a chance. Every fucking time there's an election for the last 40 years. That is why you have just had to move back in with your parents. It is that attitude of, it's probably going to be fine, isn't it? And nobody holding the government to account, which is why all of you with frustrations in the moving industry have frustrations with the situation. Estate agents, good estate agents have frustrations. It's government policy. And this is why I was screaming from the rooftops that anything other than a Labour government would have been better. Even though they didn't deserve it, we would have been better off with Rishi Sunak carrying on. I'm not a fan of his, but what he was, actually he was moving the needle on a few things that was starting to look better, right? I mean, I can't believe I'm hearing myself saying that, right? The country would have been marginally better off. The housing market still wouldn't have been, it wouldn't have, there were no plans to improve it, and he was going to bring Help to Buy back in, which would have made it fucking worse. But we have one or two options here. We can stand by and just wait while the country rots. Or we can actually go, okay, let's stop waiting for governments to fix this and let's fix this ourselves. And that's what I'm working on. That's what I'm working on. That's what I'm doing the Best Agent, the house price index, the public house price index, the transparency that will blow wide open the bullshit in all the house price indices, and there'll be actual transparency and truth on house prices that will stop the standoff, stop the overpricing, make transaction time. So my goal is to end overvaluing, halve transaction times, and breathe life back into the transaction volumes and make moving easier. To stop overpricing, stop overvaluing, stop all of the practices that are leading to the utter constipation in the housing market in every sense, right? Because everyone will be financially better off if the housing market functions better again. And I have a plan and a vision that achieves that despite the government. Despite the government. That's what I'm working on. That's what I work on all the time. It's what I'm working on pretty much every waking hour. Those of you who are long-term followers will know about this stuff. Those of you who are new who won't know the details of it. But it's around my relationship with agents, my relationship with you, the movers, through this channel is very important. And effectively unblocking the congestion in the housing market that would make everything better, even prices. Not tonight's not the night to go into that. I've been babbling on for an hour and I haven't answered any questions. Oh, K-Art says, I have a moving question. I know I need to visit before exchange. Okay, so you're buying a place, you're about to exchange on it, you need to visit. You want to check the day before and you want them to know you're coming. Very important. Not a week before, because like when people are moving out the last week, I mean, a week before, they might look like nothing's happened. The day before, you want to see the state of the place the day before. And you want to let them know that the exchange is dependent upon you seeing what you expect to see the day before. Ruben Angus says, yep, they already owe us 5,500 houses, 800 a day. And they're building some now, but I'm looking for, so a lot of stuff to go through. Elaine says, Charlie for housing minister, that's really kind of you, but I would turn that opportunity down because it actually doesn't matter who is in that position. They don't have any power. No housing minister, going back as long as you want, has had any real power. They can do small things, but they don't have the power. It's got to come from central, like right from the top, and be much bigger than the housing minister can be allowed to do it. But thank you. Someone called Stig, who's not housing Stig, says, but we spend twice as much on illegal migrant accommodation. So illegal migrant accommodation is another thing that councils are legally obliged and forced to deal with. And again, if they could build their own accommodation for that purpose, it wouldn't cost so much. Yeah. Awake says, where are all the thousands of early release prisoners going to live, Charlie? You can add that to the temporary accommodation shit show. Quite right. Greasy Slick says, Charlie, forgive the cliche question, but why don't or can't Labour build prefab houses like they did after World War II? They could. They're choosing not to. They could decide tomorrow that they're going to raise money in the ways that they can raise money. And this is something that people would be happy that they're raising money to do, to go on a massive building spree. And they could use modern, high quality prefab stuff. They could. There's nothing stopping them, except for the fact, are they really in charge? Is any government really in charge? Or, and this is why I don't like the National Wealth Fund, are they simply doing what the people with the money want them to do? Ruben Anker says, Labour isn't Labour since Blair. Agreed. I heard someone call him Keir Farmer, as in Pharma. Ben Duss says, but the Labour you're talking about wouldn't get elected. No, I'm not saying I'm not saying it would be a good thing. I'm politically neutral. I'm simply respecting the political views of all sides, and the true Labour voters and supporters. I don't agree with the politics. I don't agree with socialism. It doesn't work. In the long term, it always ends up with people worse off. Capitalism isn't working either, but when it works properly, it does create and spread prosperity faster than anything else does. Socialism always ends up punishing. It's like people want to punish the rich for letting them, and that's never a constructive way to go about the future. You may or may not get to punish them, but how does it then go after that? It's not a good idea. MCS Norway Wealth Fund, £1.5 trillion. There you are. They are, people. That's what happens when a government knows how to run its finances. Something that we haven't had in about 40 years. Some funny comments, you guys. Yeah, exactly. Do it, Paulie says, turbines near me are constantly being worked on and they have diesel generators at the bottom. And they don't include the CO2 emissions from those diesel generators in their figures. Solar power, solar power definitely does make sense. If it's, as long as it's in a place it doesn't annoy people. But, I think solar powered roofs makes a lot of sense. Wind doesn't. Frizzle Frazzle says, my partner works in offshore wind as it happens. I would argue with most of your points. Main reason for silly costs in the sector is the pegging of a unit of energy to the price of gas. Okay, thank you. Thank you for challenging me. The cost, pegging the unit of energy to the price of gas means they get more money. Doesn't affect their actual maintenance costs, does it? Unless I've missed something, please clarify if I have. Oh, that's a fair comment. Zaz says, so Charlie, you're saying that they should hire an independent expert as long as it's you. Okay. Touche. That's a very fair challenge. No, because I wouldn't go around telling them where to build a town. Absolutely not. That's what he's saying his task force is going to do. That's not that's not what I would do. What I would do is I would offer a plan, like a top level plan, and I would pitch them a vision is what I would do. If you do this and if you do this, look at the numbers. I'd actually pitch them a costed plan that solves many problems, makes them look good, actually improves the economy, and kills lots of birds with one stone. I would not be a roaming task force independent expert, no. But thanks for the challenge. That's a good challenge. Just looking for more questions here. Arnold Black says, "Did Brits really care about Ukraine? I don't know anyone in real life living in London who does." I mean, I care that the European country is being attacked by Russia, and I don't know enough about it to know. I don't believe a fucking word that comes out of the media's mouth about it. But because it's quite clear if you dig into this story goes deep and long and far, and there's shit on both sides. So I don't know anything about it. But I don't want a conflict in Europe. I don't think it's good for us, and so. I don't object. I don't know enough about it. All I'm saying is look at the priorities that they're showing as if that's what the British electorate wants. I'm not saying they shouldn't be supporting Ukraine. I'm saying I don't think it's a top priority. It's not about supporting Ukraine that I mind. It's this stepping it up, saying use our missiles, fire them into Russia. That's what I think is taking it a step too far. Marcin, I can't pronounce your surname, Marcin. that Marcin, I've got to try, haven't I? Zvrzikovsky, how's that? Says, can you provide SNS ISA statement as a proof of fund to your offer? You'll need to provide that to your mortgage broker anyway. So yes, you can. They'll probably need to see the original, like a photograph. Like when you put your offer in, they don't need to know that it's original. But if you're sending a copy of it, it's going to definitely support your offer. Neil Big H says, Charlie clearly hates Labour and never saw him have any opinion on the last sheriff shite. Well, then you missed out. I was just as harsh on the previous government. I really was. They're getting a bit of extra, and it's not Labour I object to. It's this government. It doesn't matter what they're called. It's this particular team and what they're saying they're going to do. And I hope there are others of you who've been watching me for a long time who can actually back me up here in the live chat and tell Neil Big H that I did have opinions on the last shower shite, and they were a shower shite. I completely agree. K-Art says, should you exchange and complete on the same day? No reason not to. No reason not to. Right, guys, I've gone over the 1 hour witching hour. Thank you for watching. To all of you who are new, an extra special welcome and hello, and thank you for joining. To all of you who've been watching me for years, thank you, really thank you. And if you need my help, you can find it all on my website. I've also got a link tree. If you search for Moving Home with Charlie on Linktree, I'm there as well with all my links to lots of different things. But thanks, everybody. Please go to, if you are new and you're buying and you want to get all your ducks in a row before you buy a place, go to that URL there, mhwc.co.uk/all-my-ducks with hyphens. I'm out of puff. It's 9 o'clock on Friday night. I'm hanging up my work stuff for the weekend. Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate your support and your questions and your challenges. I love